お前は大勢の人間を助け、正しい死に導くことにこだわってるな。だが、自分が助けた人間が将来人を殺したらどうする？
Yeah, that's me, Fushiguro. You may be wondering how I got here. Well, it all started 2 chapters ago.
Megami's sister actually wasn't his sister, but a reincarnated sorcerer from the Heian. Now, Yuji and Angel went on pursuit, but that's when it happened. Sukuna began his treachery. And next thing you know... Through 13, simple. Megami got the Riz, he punches Yuji through some buildings, and...
No matter the era, insects always pop up. Nue.
That's a huge bitch!
Hey, get off my man. I'm about to peel you off so you can suck on these malevolent nuts. Sheesh! What else could go wrong? Next thing you know, you're going to tell me the fandom is just going to assume and theorize that Sukuna will sleep with Sumiki now. This fandom has a better grasp on the series than that, right? Right? Can someone check on Yuji? There he is. Okay.
Holy look at all this damage! Look at all this damage! Look at all this damage!
With Yuji being our main character, this chapter is very telling that everything's changed. In Shibuya, it was about how those events changed the landscape of all of Jiu-Jitsu in Japan as well. But now, these events, which still affect those things, are more about how they directly affect Yuji. It starts off with Yuji coming to the realization of what is actually occurring. Hana being thrown off the side. As he looks up, he has a different look about him. Gege showed the despair in Yuji. He looks different. I mean, even prior, the very first panel of Yuji, he kind of looks like his older style. But to me, at least, it shows a very different person kind of as our vehicle through the story. We get a lot of show but don't tell. He doesn't really talk a whole lot. He's just acting on the negative emotions flowing through him. We find out that he isn't just the high school kid. Obviously, we knew that, but beginning of the story, Yuji is jumping multiple stories up to kick in a glass window at his school to save his friends. We see him now jumping on top of these buildings to get in confrontation and get in close with Sukuna. There's a whole lot to unpack, but not a lot to really kind of discuss about 214 because it's mostly a action-based chapter with just them two fighting and kind of spewing out ideals of how they just view things, of why Yuji wants to know is why did the Sukuna and those curses just want to spread misery, and Sukuna just wants to know why they're so weak. You know, if you're weak, do something about it, get stronger, and make me stop. Honestly, this chapter is kind of the wind down to the events of what actually happened. Now, of course, there's more action to be had in this chapter, and especially the following in 215. But that's why I think this chapter is very important. It's that it's wedged in between the ignition chapters and then the combat chapters of the main character kind of settling into the emotions of, the realization of what he's going through and how that's affecting him. We see him act like we've never done before. He looks like a madman. He's like crazy. There's 3 things that kind of highlight in this chapter. It's Sukuna talking about Yuji being from that time and how Kenjaku does the grossest things. Who knows what Yuji's actual origin is? We've seen Kenjaku being his mom, but it could go even further than that since Sukuna is saying from that time. But my original theory was actually that Yuji is a curse this whole time, but kind of the next step in evolution from Choso. And And when I say that he's the next step in evolution, I just mean Yuji has all the signatures of a human, but his body is amped like a curse. That was my original theory, kind of like even the Six Eyes couldn't distinguish the difference between Yuji and a regular human. But the fact remains that that's what makes him a perfect candidate to be a cage for Sukuna. Who knows, maybe Yuji doesn't even have a soul. Maybe that's why he can house Sukuna, because he's only putting that one soul in his body. Third thing that highlighted through Sukuna in this chapter is Megami is limiting his output. Because we get the sickest panel in JJK in my opinion, which is this one. And beautiful. When I was reading the leaks this chapter, I was going nuts at like 2 a.m. The reason why I wanted to highlight Megami's limiting Sukuna's output of cursed energy is because that's the only way Yuji was going to get out of that situation alive. Yuji did eat all those cuts, which I'm sure would have put down a lot of people in the verse. Yuji's whole try to stifle my misery is him really living and pushing that negative emotions outwardly and just thriving on that feeling of wanting to exact revenge. He's tired of being pushed around, or the good guys just in general being pushed around by people who are just evil to be evil. I mean, less than a month ago, Shibuya happened and we see Sukuna massacre 1,000 people, and also with Mahito and Shibuya taking away 2 huge chunks of his connection to the world. You know, those bonds and having people around you when you die that's the beginning of all this for Yuji, or at least to our first perspective and his thoughts as well. Even though it's looking like he was always had a destiny to be a cage, which I do think he will either get Sukuna back inside of him and sacrifice himself, or I think that they'll beat Sukuna and he will become like a Tengen for the Jujutsu world somehow. I have other theories that maybe one day I'll do a video on. I just wanted to talk about this chapter because it's a tone setting chapter in between a lot of action and a lot of like narratively important payoffs. So it's nestled in between big moments and hype moments, especially with Maki pulling up on Sukuna in one of the most badass entrances, and you know, her using Yuji as a sword, or Sukuna just roasting Yuji as he flies away. There's a lot to love about this span of 5 chapters, but in my opinion, 214 takes the cake for the chapter that changed everything. It's the one that changed how I feel about the series and made me realize we are entering the endgame. And important in tone, and I think Gege does an excellent job of setting that early on with just Yuji's face. No words, just action. All gas, no brakes. Thanks for watching. Stay normie, stay weeb. Shit even in between is fine. Till next time. Peace. Squeeze.